Broadcasting live, this is the Handicappers Report. Brought to you by the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue, Albany, and CapitalOTBBet.com, the premier online wagering site in New York State. CapitalOTBBet.com. Sign up today.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Handicappers Report alongside Seth, Merrow. I am Anthony Mormino as we work our way to the middle part of January. And for at least the second time, no racing at Santa Anita, canceled a couple cards. And I was thinking about this, and I've told people, late December through January and a little February is kind of like the rainy season in Southern California. And I know they're having like an incredible amount of rain, but we've had that before. I never remember them canceling the way that they do now, which I'm sure has an upside, but they canceled like 3 days before the racing was going to take place. But there won't be a drought in California for a while after the amount they're getting of late. But Santa Anita canceling on this holiday weekend, but
yeah, wish the best for everybody. I mean, I have a couple of nephews out in L.A., and I guess one of them has a pool in the backyard, which is overflowed.
Up and over.
Yeah. And it's just an incredible amount of weather. And as you said, they canceled a couple of days ago for today. They ran yesterday, but Thursday they announced today in anticipation of weather. They're supposed to run again tomorrow, and then with the holiday on Monday, they were going to run on Monday. They canceled on Monday, so. But it looks like tomorrow they're going to maybe get a window in.
Could try and get in. Tomorrow is a race that popped up that I'm trying not to evolve into the old man get off the lawn guy. But tomorrow is the La Cañada. And the series just, I can't even, it doesn't even exist. There's no Stroop series. There's no La.
I was thinking about that the other day, that old Stroop series.
And I will say this. It rightfully went away. I mean, I've said this before on this network, about this. It's like we should have about half as many graded stakes races as we used to have, within margin. But that's about a starting point. And, I was trying to think. The middle leg used to be the El Encino, and that went away, I want to say like 15 years ago. So that was really the end of the series. Now, on the boys' side, this was really odd, I thought, and this was about 10, 12 years ago. They commingled the San Antonio with the Stroop. I mean, it was just like...
Did that series start with the Malibu?
Yes.
and then continued as 4-year-olds only, right?
Yes. And now there's some things that changed, but in my lifetime, the Malibu wasn't always the December 26th stakes race. It used to be the Palos Verdes. So it would start in January.
Okay.
So when they had to change...
Because it was a 4-year-old only
series. Right. And the San Antonio was run a week after. The Stroop was run 4 weeks before the Big Cap. The San Antonio was for 5-year-olds and up, was run 3 weeks before the Big Cap, and then they would meet, and the 4-year-olds would no longer be any restricted races. But, they just went away. So tomorrow's the La Cañada. It's borderline a listed stakes race, which is rightfully so. As I said, I did not see one Southern California race downgraded that I disagreed with. And I'll be honest, I thought maybe downgraded a little faster. They don't seem to ever skip two.
Oh, yeah.
Right. It's like, and the example I used was, in 1995, the Santa Barbara was a grade 1 for fillies. That's kind of the end of the filly and mare turf stakes season. Then they'd go to Hollywood Park. Well, it's now down to listed. So it's gone from a grade 1 to a listed in 26 years, and rightfully so. So that's it. The La Cañada tomorrow, not something to hang your hat on. It won't be a showdown between Gorgeous and Bayaco or anything like that. It's it's just a different game now.
Yeah.
I looked when I
it's tough not to be the old man because the game has changed.
And the reason I become the old man is it was so glorious. I mean, that's the heartbreaking part for me. I was talking to our director before here. The 80s really saw Southern California chase New York to the top. Once the bid and affirmed wintered in Southern California, Santa Anita, it really changed. It really gave a stronghold to Southern California. And I happened to be 16, 17 years older than going to school there. And, you know, it was just up, up, up. You know, the Ferdinand, the Ali Shebas, the Snow Chief, up, up, up. And then the 90s was kind of like an evening out. And I was telling Seth before we came on the air, he had Wayne Lucas on this past summer, you know, the great Wayne Lucas. And, you know, it was kind of like when Lucas left Southern California, that was it. I mean, he saw the handwriting on the wall, you know, where he had dominated for 20 years. And then it's, you know, obviously they had some, you know, they don't have the subsidized stakes races, the purses,
in the last few years, you watched the jockey colony kind of dissipate across
money.
the
We all follow money.
just because there aren't enough opportunities
Yeah.
out there. Talamo and Bejarano
And I tell you
guys
what,
who are top riders out there have gone.
you know, as a guy who follows Del Mar closely, you know, trust me, they don't have a stakes race a day. You know, some of those Thursday, Friday cards are a little, a little left for wanting. I mean, the weather is great, just like it is down at Gulfstream Park today. Seth has Gulfstream. I have New York. We have the Busanda Stakes around. Who do you have at the top of the hour?
Coming up, there's some nice stakes action today down in Tampa, so we'll talk a little bit about that. Mark Cassie has some runners over at Tampa, so we'll have Mark Cassie at the top of the hour to talk. He's got 3 horses in a couple of the stakes down at Tampa, so we'll talk about those. We'll also get an update on Wonder Wheel, who got back to workout action the other day. So we'll hit on that with Mark, and then Ren Carruthers, the paddock commentator down there, Tampa, will go over some of the stakes action as well. So we'll talk a little.
I'll tell you one thing. They do extremely well for what I think it's fair to say is almost an anemic purse structure.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at it sometimes and I marvel about how well they do running for what doesn't seem to be highly competitive purse structure. I mean, the turf course is raved about in the industry, but you look at it and you're like, as Tom Amello, our old colleague, told me years ago, you know, when it used to be the old battle between the Haskell and the Jim Dandy, where were you going to prep for the Travers? He's like, well, they like to run for money because generally the Haskell has been twice the purse of the Jim Dandy. And you're like, they usually run for money, but Tampa has, you know, just puts on a great winter season. And I think it's fair to say their purse structure could be helped along. So, you know, kudos to them. And Ren, what did she start doing it 3 years ago?
That sounds about right.
Shades left.
Yeah, and her husband did it for one season. And then 3 sounds about right.
You know, picked it up. So, you know, I've said this many times before about Tampa. I had never heard of the racetrack really until Howie Tesher had that New York bred Champagne for Ashley, who was a colt. He won the Tampa Bay Derby. And I think he was undefeated at that time and really looked like the first serious New York bred colt for the Triple Crown races. And then he ran in the wood. I think he hit the board and was retired, never ran again.
Steinbrenner owned the track for a while.
I think he did.
Yeah.
I think he did. And that would be like the only time I'd even have heard, because I'm a Yankee fan. So Steinbrenner was, because he's always been a Tampa.
Yeah.
That's his part of Florida, because he's a Cleveland, Ohio guy. But Tampa, obviously, the Yankees train there, etc. So, you know, that's it. Anything else?
Well, speaking of other sports.
Obviously, you did hit Mega Millions because you came to work today. But you're a professional. There's a person from Maine, so you were on the radar.
Oh,
Dan says there's a person from Maine is the winner. You're a professional. You would have come anyway.
I was going to say I hadn't checked my tickets yet.
Okay.
Had I checked my tickets and gotten it, I don't know whether. I probably would be coming. I wouldn't leave you hanging. I wouldn't leave you hanging.
You don't want to stress out.
Just also wanted to toss out. I think the only people who were thrilled with the Monday Night Football action were people who thought, man, I don't want to stay up too late and have to worry about getting up in the morning. Those people didn't have any worries. They were in bed by halftime.
No, they almost never seen anything like that. I mean, a couple years ago, Brian Nadeau doesn't want to hear this, but SC throttled Oklahoma like 55-10. The game was, but I think the Oklahoma people thought they had a chance coming back, but TCU people, it was just like,
oh man.
What's really hard to make, this is where it fits with horse racing so well. You would have thought off of Georgia's or last race that they didn't have this race in them. Because it's hard for me to imagine that there's that much difference between TCU and Ohio State. But apparently the Ohio State was the bounce race. And then they came back against TCU and gave us the real goods because they just made it look like, D3.
First half, every time they touched the ball,
scored.
It's just like, oof, wow.
A friend of mine looked up and he had gotten lost in about the second quarter. So I said, well, this game's over. And he's like, what do you mean, 17-7? I go, well, it's 35-7 now, and I think they're going to score again and again and again.
There was one point where I did that too. I'm watching, and TCU had the ball, and I flipped over to watch something else, and I literally watched for probably 2 minutes, and I flipped back, and
it's a boat
Georgia
race.
had scored a touchdown.
Yeah, it was as you said. No one lost any sleep because the Georgia fans were the only ones that would have stayed with, and they would have been so amped up that they would have had no problem going to work the next day. So it's actually not a good look. Like that's not good.
Well, and people were subsequently
Remember
saying,
how bad the Super Bowls were in the.
People were subsequently saying they're probably right. This doesn't necessarily
Expanding.
bode well for when 5 plays 12. You're going to wind up with some of those games.
It's going to be a lot of bad games in the first round.
Yeah. Because
what?
There is a big difference between the top 2, the top 3, the top 4, and.
Now we're the right age, but I don't know how much you paid attention outside of Syracuse. But when the tournament went to 64 teams, there were some first round games that were. The line would be like 32.5 points. They just weren't, which is why the upsets became so palatable to people, But when they expanded it, they let in a lot of teams that just, then they went to seedings, and it just got out of hand. But we'll see. Hopefully we'll have, it is bad, as we know in the Northeast. As mild can be so far for winter. It's amazing. People ask me, I said at my age, and I probably felt this way 30 years ago, though, they're like, well, how's your day going? Well, in the wintertime, if I don't have to shovel, it's a good day. Yeah. So I've had a lot of good days. And it's mild out, so hopefully...
Looks like the next week continues that at least.
Yeah,
Once you get into February can go either way.
Oh, man.
But once you get into February, you're on the downslope. Then once you get into March can go either way, too, but March you're headed towards spring. So.
Then you'll be headed to the Florida Derby, so that kind of, you got that week on the good. You slide that over to the good ledger. I just want to say that people, it's like, just so you know, it's not just, I could show Seth because it won't show up here. It's not just the super big races, but I have the entire history of the Busanda on one of my spreadsheets. I keep, the winter because, there was a time when this was, listen, Princess of Selmar won this race a couple of years ago, but... I always like that. I probably have over 400 stakes races, some of which don't exist anymore, etc. going through. But what's funny about the Busanda, and I had to go to a library to get some of the old stuff, the highest priced winner was in the first running back in the, I want to make sure I got this right, in the waning days of the Richard Nixon administration. The first winner, Quick Fair, paid 72 and change. Has not been usurped to this day. And then I had a list. How's this for rough going? 1, 2, 3, 4. There was a period a couple years ago when 7 out of 9 never won another race. I always put this in the far right-hand corner. I always put what they did after, and so the Busanda was kind of the high
the
water.
other day,
and I think she was Mike Veach did a story one time. She was apparently a tremendous racehorse. Went out to California and beat the boys, but go ahead.
I was going to say, the other day I was looking at some stats as I was handicapping in the afternoon, and I thought, I got to find out somebody like you who keeps this. I don't know whether this would be something you put on your database, but I'd love to know horses that win off the claim when the next start they're dropping off the claim. Because to me, that's always a bad sign, but I don't think you can just blanket say, but I'd love to know the stats on that. First off the claim with a drop in price.
Well, first thing you know is they have to wait 30 days. And when we were growing up as kids, no one waited 30 days to run a horse unless, medicine said you had to. That's the first thing. But I never thought of that, but we talked about it this summer, and I have a case coming up. Brad Cox. You're just like, it just reeks fire sale, but you're like, I said it this summer, and I think he went 2 for 3 or 3 for 3 in the first 12 days of racing, and he's got one today that you're just like, you want to push the stone up the hill, or you just want to get on board at even money. So
there's some that just kind of seem like, oh, this is a red flag, but these days, is it?
I don't think it is. We've talked how, like I said, I don't care about. I mean, when I tell you, folks, I do not care. What 1993 when they started that line for the layoff. Oh, hallelujah, great idea. Now it's like, get out of the way. I don't care. Go ahead.
All right, let's kick it off. Again, I'll look at Gulfstream a little bit later on, but on this Saturday, was yesterday lucky for you? I was in your handicapping. Friday the 13th, I thought was okay. I didn't go one way or the other.
I'm not. That's not a thing.
No.
No.
Yeah,
I don't.
Am I superstitious? I'm trying to think at the track. There may be times where it's like, I want to go back to the same window or something, but it's not a big thing.
Yeah, my favorite line is I met Gary Player once years ago, and if you don't know, Gary Player loves horse racing. He's breeder in South Africa, etc. Yeah. And I always loved his line, thinking about superstition and everything. He goes, the harder I work, the luckier I always got. So I'm not really a luck guy. I'm more of a nose to the grindstone guy.
All right, opener today at Aqueduct, state-bred maiden 40 claimers going a mile.
And speaking of which, what I had alluded to, this is Brad Cox in the opener. He's 6-5 on the morning line, drops in for a tag for the first time. I don't care. It's 6-3-1. I mean, it's just an evolution for me later that, first time Lasix, comes off of a turf effort, hasn't run since November. None of those traditional handicapping angles which I grew up with and really held on to for a very long time. I don't care. It's going to be a short price, but I'm not going up against the Brad Cox machine. So Manny Franco is aboard. We're running 40s. Doesn't matter. It's just a different game, and I'll take Brad Cox. Caribbean Breeze, number 6 on top. For second, number 3, Never Personal, Bruce Levine's runner. First time in for a tag. Debuted at the Spa. Hasn't run since October. Gets Lasix for the first time. An offspring of Hard Spun, and then number 1, Burnt Again. In the old days, which were probably just about a year ago, Seth, for me, Burnt Again would have been the type of horse I put on top. Because I wouldn't have liked the first 2 horses I picked based on their price, but it doesn't matter. So it's 6-3-1 in today's Aqueduct opener.
Second race is an optional claimer starter allowance, both at the $50,000 level. Again, we'll go the 1-turn mile.
And it stays like today, like Brian Netto and I used to talk about, when you click print, the number of pages it is tells you a lot. And for today's racing at Aqueduct, for me, it was 19 pages, which is not the number you want to see. And I also noticed you for Gulfstream Park was a much lower number than I anticipated. My point is, I don't know how horizontals, I'm doomed as a vertical player. You can't play trifectas, etc. But on horizontals, it's like, I'm 6-2-5 in here. My point is, the first 2 legs of the early pick 5, I don't know, it's like 2 horses. You're only leaving 4 out, and you move on. It's Viper gets my top pick for Brittany Russell. Runs this horse in New York for the first time. Has exclusively run at Laurel. Gets Lasix today for this offspring of Super Saver. Takes on Winners for the second time. Tried the higher level, the optional claimer, and was in for the 62. You're thinking, I don't pay attention to Laurel's claiming ranks, but I don't know how many $62,000 claims, first time versus winners there are, but now runs to the optional claimer starting allowance. I think that's a softer spot, even coming up to New York, because this isn't the toughest New Yorkers. For a second, number 2, getting Lasix for the first time for Linda Rice, the $50,000 tag, and obviously Linda Rice in that. The type of window, folks, that allows her to be a 25%er first off the claim, and for third, playing with matches. Our friend Mark Henning sends out this runner. Broke the maiden for a tag, tried the Stallion series, and as I've said, that's one of those allowance non-winners of a half for me. Now stretches out to a mile for the first time, the offspring of Bellamy Road. 6-2-5 at the Big A.
I'm just looking it up to see
Yes.
if I can find it here, because I want to say it was Wednesday, there was an optional claimer with $150,000 tags.
And if anybody got picked
I
up,
was looking to see if anybody got, and maybe it wasn't Wednesday, maybe it was, but
that would
I'll
be,
keep looking.
in the
And
dead
everybody
of
was
winter.
in for the tag. And
Yeah,
I thought,
the
boy,
dead of
150
winter.
at Tampa? Yikes.
I mean, they have run them occasionally in the nice summertime weather out in Southern California, and I think one got picked off, and I mentioned it on the show 2 summers ago.
Well, I want to say Endorsed got claimed for a big price
$150.
at Saratoga, maybe. All right, third race on this Saturday. State bred allowance non-winners are 1 other than 7 furlongs the trip.
2 1A and 7. See, we have the 1A ability. We don't have the 1E ability. We have the 1A, and I only want the 1A. I don't want. That's why I say on the network, from time to time, I am comfortable with whichever half chooses to stay in, or if the entry chooses to stay in. And Andy Shirley makes a great point all the time. His disdain for entries and how much you get hurt on the price, and it's completely accurate. Here I felt as if that won't be the case, because the other thing is, you know what I noticed? And I guess this makes sense if you thought about it, but very rarely do you see entries with like 30-1 shots on the morning line, or even 20-1 shots. 8-1 is actually kind of high. You're like, okay. But I would think if I was running entries, those would be the types I would want to run. I don't want to run 2 horses that would be 2-1. I'm killing my chance to win races. But I'm major spin in here. One of the other entry mates, there's 2 entries in this race. Rudy Rodriguez claimed this horse for $40K. Tried the starter allowance, and this is what I've said. It is, I think in New York, and we, only running starter allowance races for a few years, are day in and day out tougher than New York bred 1Xs. That's just a, anecdotal opinion that I have. Hopefully we get a fast racetrack today for Kendrick. Major spin, scheduled to break for the number 3 post position, gets my top pick. For second, the 1A, Breaking Stones, goes out for Oscar Barrera. Katie Davis, scheduled to have the mount. Won by a pole when claimed out in November, right before Thanksgiving. A brilliant performance, has regressed since then, but now is cycling back to the 3rd race off of that claim. And for third, this is just the horse. Awesome Native is 6-5 on the board. Jorge Abreu's runner was excellent on debut at 2-1. Won by a handful. Now takes on winners. I can see this horse right down the road once again, but you're going to get a short end of the stick. I was talking, I think the last time we worked together, how infrequently horses in the New York bred program used to go 1, 2, 3 through the conditions, but the race goes through Awesome Native, folks. There's no doubt about it. I have them for third, 2, 1A, and 7.
And you talk about Andy and entries, and I've thought about it. And originally I was kind of like, well, I get why entries are there, and it's to protect the better. But then the more you think about it, it is a little bit of an anachronism, because I think you go back 30 or 40 years ago, or when I first got into the game, the entry made sense because you didn't want to have half of the end. You liked this half of the entry,
the so-called wrong half winning,
and they send it out, and it's out there to make the pace and fades, and there were reasons, but I just don't think that strategy plays. I think when they enter, they're looking to, hey, we'll take whatever.
You're almost kind of surprising, because years ago, I would say about 30, they did it away, like in grade 1 races for $1 million. There'd be no entries. I think they stopped it in the Breeders' Cup, I want to say about 98. So that's been 25 years they got away from.
I mean, the whole rabbit concept is
just
gone the way.
Almost, yeah, the dodo bird.
Yeah.
I did think the one part of it was, that, is bad, is where you're not protected the better is if there's disparity and like a gate scratch, and now they just protected the better. So you have that device. So now just uncouple them. I think Andy's completely right about that. It's like, just run them.
Yeah.
Just, if something comes up where we think we need to revisit it. And that's what I always say about, I used to say this about Saratoga when they were lengthening the meet. I was like, if it doesn't work out, we can go back.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like you can never return. It's like uncouple of them. If nothing happens, keep going. If somebody starts asking some questions, revisit it. You know?
And it was the 5th race on Wednesday at Tampa. They were all in for $150,000. Nobody dipped in to take one.
You know,
Doing
you do a lot of it. I don't know that it's a good enough conversation, but I'd like to, maybe they'd have the conversation off the record. Like, do you think you're going to get claimed? And you're all shaking your head. No one's claiming it. And so then you're like, to the races secretary, so what's this about? I mean, it's intriguing to me. You know, I don't know. Like, why does that race exist? I'd like the guys who put the horses in the race, I'd be like, the 1X, you don't want to, I mean, is there a killer you don't want to face at 1X? I don't know.
Like I say, Endorsed, I looked that up too, because I think Endorsed got picked up for a big tag at Saratoga a couple of years ago.
You might be right.
All right, we are up to
Fourth.
the fourth. $14,000 conditional claimers, non-winners of 3 lifetime, 9 furlongs the trip.
357 for me in here. We take the odd way out. Henry III, number 3. I guess, you know, if you're into things like that, that would work. Last time this horse was on a fast dirt track, it worked out at Monmouth Park, going 2 turns. I draw a good post position here. Talked about how running on the main track at the Big A, we don't get as many 2-turn races as the old inner years ago, because basically 1 1/8 is mostly the only distance they would run 2 turns. But this Offspring of Keen Ice is in at the right level, was runner-up most recently at a 3L. For second, number 5, Regality, going out for Jeffrey Englehart, scored at Parks going 2 turns, and then got whooped going the 1-turn sprint at Parks at a higher level. Now gets what I think is a very significant class drop. And if you're trying to gauge it, I mean, here's at Finger Lakes. This must have been, I'd say, well, it's the day before our son's birthday, so a Wednesday. Won by a pole at the 2L. Subsequently was disqualified after the fact. Jay Stalker does scare me on the outside for Bruce Levine. They take off blinkers, and this is an example where I really like it, Seth, the angle. This horse had success and won, and I think the old rules used to be if you won, didn't you have to get permission from the stewards to add blinkers off of a win?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you win going 9, and you ask for blinkers, and it's a disaster. And you go back to, that's another example, like to Bruce Levine, who is a great guy. You won by daylight.
Why?
I mean, these are horsemen. They know what they're doing. I mean, maybe Javier Castellano came off the win and said, yeah, we won, but got a little distracted out there, so you might. And then here's the thing I don't really understand. And I know you can't replicate a race in the morning, but can't you try blinkers in the morning, get a stablemate, and see? Because at 7-2, that wasn't a good find out adding blinkers. So 3-5-7 as blinkers come off number 5. But I think that's still a rule where off of a victory you have to get permission.
August 6, 2021, allowance optional claimer at Saratoga, Endorsed, ran 3rd, picked up for $100,000.
100, okay.
And grabbed his record since then. Stakes placed a couple of times, but this was 2021, and first win was in December of 2022. He won the other day, so took a little while to get the return on the.
And that was the allowance one. I'd be interested in those Southern California ones, the maidens and etc. It's just wow.
5th race today at Aqueduct. Maiden specials going 7.
825 Marty's Magic. Probably my long shot play of the day. Hasn't run since October. Is listed as first time gelding. Very believable. First time Lasix. Believable as a non-2-year-old now. For a second, number 5 Venge. Bobby Robato's runner was nice on debut, finishing 3rd. And Offspring of Gunrunner steps out to 7. And then power in numbers 8-5 for Chad Brown. The firster, the Offspring of Gervin, who was the hot side of the summer, 8-5 in the 5th.
All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, more Aqueduct. A little bit later on, Gulfstream. Stay tuned.
Capital OTB is now streaming live on Roku. The RTN Racing channel on Roku lets you watch OTB TV live through your Roku device or your Amazon Fire Stick, rather than being limited to computers and mobile devices, which means you can now watch OTB live wherever you are. Simply open Roku, scroll to find the RTN channel, then click on OTB TV. OTB TV on Roku. Try it now.
This is a championship meet. All the best jockeys in the world are here, and I'm excited to ride against them. You get to watch some really incredible, talented athletes out there.
To us, it's a place to be in the winter.
I love Gulfstream Park because of the racing.
The palm trees, the beach is right here. The horse racing is some of the best in the country.
Come on.
I want sales reports on my desk by Monday.
Whoops. My bad.
Love racing? RTN brings you every live simulcast on your home television, plus live video streaming and race replays on your PC and mobile devices. To order, visit rtn.tv. RTN, a breed apart.
Welcome back to the Handicappers Report. Seth, Merrow, and Anthony Mormino. We will continue our look at Aqueduct for this Saturday afternoon with race number 6. State-bred maiden special fillies going 3/4 of a mile.
6-3-4 for me. I have the veteran in the group. That is Sweet Liberty going out for Jackie Davis. Horse is still a maiden. Did try the Stallion Series. We talked about that on the final show that I did with no, it wasn't. We actually did work on New Year's Eve. But that was the Stallion Series where over the course of the 2 races, I think it was 16 out of 30 horses were maidens, but that's not new to me. But hopefully gets a clear, fast racetrack, which this horse hasn't seen since Saratoga when hitting the board for second. Number 3, Weekend Rags. 8-5 for Jorge Abreu, who could have a very good day today. Third career start, gets Lasix for the 3-year-old debut. And for third, the firster, number 4, My Angel, the offspring of War Dancer, who we heard from this summer. 6-3-4.
7th race this afternoon is Starter Allowance. Once again, 3/4 of a mile.
286. Blinding Light gets my top pick. Jeffrey Englehart's runner has been back-to-back runner-up at this level. For second, number 8, Lord Gatling. This was a $14,000 claim, has already won. And for third, number 7, going out after just getting beat at 9-2 out of the David Jacobson barn. Claimed Kendrick Carmouche gets the call today. 286.
Race number 8, stakes
Here it
action. The
is.
aforementioned Busanda, $100,000 for the 3-year-old fillies, going 9 furlongs.
And it's either Busanda or Busher. I used to always think of those 2 wintertime stakes races. That was a beast, beating boys and going out to California. One of those 2. 3-2-1 in this 5-horse edition of the Busanda. Affirmative Lady for Graham Motion. Still a maiden. Just got beat in the Demoiselle by a neck as a maiden. Makes the 4th career start. Second time going 2 turns for the offspring of Arrogate for second. The 7-5 favorite, number 2, Occult, going out for Chad Brown. Takes on winners for the first time in the 3rd career start. And then for third, number 1, Gambling Girl. 3rd place in the Demoiselle. Makes the 7th career start from the inside. 3-2-1.
And we'll wrap it up on Saturday afternoon
Yes.
in race number 9. I thought this was a pretty evenly matched
I
bunch.
agree.
Allowance non-winners are 1 mile.
And I must say I was shocked at the open company allowance to get this many in. I mean, I'm saying that frankly. They had to dust off the number 11 saddle cloth, but this is a terrific get-out race. As a person who followed trifectas very much, you didn't get this condition very often in New York for the get-out race. 11, 5, and 3. Bill Mott sends out the 11, second time in his barn after being in the Chad Brown barn. Now, this is the 1-turn mile, so I love watching the head-ons. You can see how far outside the 11 is. It does take some work with Dylan Davis. For second, number 5, Patient Capital. Mike Maker claimed this horse from, you could probably guess it, with the financial name from Chad Brown. just got beat at this level most recently at the Big A, going the 1-turn mile. And for third, you could guess it, Money Supply. They had blinkers today in the 8th career start. Third since Saratoga, 11.53 in today's 4:16 finale.
All right, we'll take another break. When we come back, we'll shift our attention to Florida. We will live vicariously with the Gulfstream weather. Stay tuned.
Birdstone is an outside front. They're coming down to the finish. Can Smarty Jones hold on? Here comes Birdstone. Birdstone surges past. Birdstone wins the Belmont Stakes. In front, but here comes High Chaparral. High Chaparral, the defending champ, to take it to Bob Rock. These two arch rivals head to head with Joe Hart bearing down on them. It's going to be a 3-horse photo finish in the turn. Here's the wire. Photo finish.
What if there was a way to become a better horse player, to have a better knowledge of the game, to be more successful? What if there were a way to take what you've learned, what you know, and make better decisions, better choices? In horse racing, knowledge is a powerful tool. Race results and replays, past performances and live streaming, wagering from all your digital devices. Capital OTB. Become a better horse player.
Capital OTB is now streaming live on Roku. The RTN Racing channel on Roku lets you watch OTB TV live through your Roku device or your Amazon Fire Stick, rather than being limited to computers and mobile devices, which means you can now watch OTB live wherever you are. Simply open Roku, scroll to find the RTN channel, then click on OTB TV. OTB TV on Roku. Try it now.
My turn?
Yeah.
Well, I guess we're discussing my retirement plans, which aren't imminent, but, you know, Seth is like, what? You know, because it's Arizona. But the other thing is, like, I want to retire, but I still want to do things. Like, my plan is, like, to play 9 holes of golf every day. Go see, like, the Arizona Coyotes or whatever is going on. But we turn our attention, we were talking about warm weather. That's what led to this. And we turn our attention to Gulfstream Park, mile on the turf, maiden claimers, in for 25. Get us underway.
I have it 4, 12, 10, and 9. I put Ready for Diamonds on top. The Kent Sweezy runner's just getting class relief that I think is going to be beneficial. The first 3 starts of the career were maiden specials, went from a maiden optional claimer last time at a higher price. So I think, you know, there are races, obviously, they haven't been winning races or they wouldn't make this drop, but there have been races that, compared to this bunch, I think stack up okay. So with the class relief, makes some sense. Smooth Motion, and I may regret this because when I was in yesterday afternoon, I said the same thing about one of the horses that ended up winning yesterday. I'm going to put Smooth Motion on top except for the post position. A mile on the grass to be hung outside like this is a little bit of a knock, but one of the horses yesterday, Jose Ortiz, immediately got to the rail and took him all the way around. So I was kind of kicking myself a little bit there. But again, Smooth Motion is very, very potent in here. And My Eagle Soars. Again, the post position was a little bit of a negative, but I think the Kathleen O'Connell runner is squarely in the thick of things with this group. So the opener at Gulfstream, 4, 12, 10, and 9.
On to the second, we're over to the Topeka, going 5 furlongs, restricted claimers 2L.
6, 5, 3, and 1. I'll put Banker's Hours on top. Just seems to me maybe moving into some good form right now. Nice close-up second place finish last time with Paco Lopez on board. Luis Saez jumps on board today. Off, again, that near-miss second in a very similar event. So why not right back for a good try? Speaking of jocks, Irad Ortiz is on board Rare Jewel. This is first off the claim for Peter Walder. Peter Walder, very good off the claim. This horse tossed in a clunker last time, but that seems to be one you can draw a line through because the rest of the races on the page are very good. It was also at 2 turns, cuts back to the sprint, and the poor performance last time and the draw a line through might absolutely be due to the distance. So it gets back to a preferred distance today. And Neophyte in the 3rd slot. Been trying a little bit tougher over the past few starts. The Claudio, speaking of high percentage guys, Claudio Gonzalez trainee drops down to the 12-5 level, which clearly will be beneficial for that one. So for me, in the second, 6, 5, 3, and 1.
On to the third race, we have Fillies and Mares maiden special weights, going a mile on the turf.
6, 2, 5, and 9. I'm going to put Chiaramonte on top, if I came close to pronouncing that. First couple of starts at Churchill and Belmont for Brendan Walsh. I thought they were both pretty good runs, and the 4-1 looks kind of generous in here to me. It's a fairly evenly matched bunch, and you have a Chad Klarovich runner, you have Todd in here, and so those horses will take some action. But again, I think the 6 horse is very live in here, and the 4-1. And again, with those other names in here, maybe we'll get some value for this one. Second slot, Expand the Map. It's Chad and Klarovich. Team I like very much with win early types, and this one has not quite lived up to that with 3 seconds and 4 starts so far. But what we've seen, those 3 seconds, says this horse does have some talent, and compared to this bunch, this may be the group that Expand the Map can break through with. War Princess off a career debut for Todd Pletcher, likely to benefit from that experience, and a move forward for that one is clearly well within her scope, you would think. So the third at Gulfstream, 6, 2, 5, and 9.
On to the fourth, we have optional claimers, starter allowance on the Tapeta, racing 5.5.
6, 7, 2, and 5. Veery on top for me. Marty Drexler brings this one down from Woodbine. If you don't pay attention, Drexler, very potent up there at Woodbine. And he has, last season, maybe the last couple of seasons, brought some of these horses down to Gulfstream and done okay down there. I think this one comes in good form. Now, claimed up at Woodbine last time, claimed away from Robert Tiller. But Marty Drexler, very good off the claim. So the horse is in good form, comes down to Gulfstream. Seems logical. Luis Saez on board. Veery on top. Second slot, Bahamian Moon. Also in good form. Couple of starts here at Gulfstream since coming down from New Jersey this summer and fall. Nice win on the first start down here, and then nice second place finish last time. So again, just logically in very good form, and in good form last time with similar company. Designed by Kitten in the third spot. Faced better last time and tossed in a big number. I'm not quite sure what to make of the Dale Romans trainee, but that was a turf to synthetic move. Maybe appreciated the return to the synthetic. Certainly on the Gulfstream, synthetic has a very good record with 6 exacta finishes in 7 starts. And again, tossed in the lifetime best buyer number last time on the return to this track. So I'll put that one in the mix and see if we can back that number up, because the number kind of jumps off the page a little bit. So we'll see if it's an aberration or this horse just appreciates the return to the surface. In the fourth, 6, 7, 2, and 5.
On to the fifth, we have 3-year-olds, maiden special weights, going 6 on the dirt.
8, 6, 11, and 7. Beatles fans can go with Sergeant Pepper. They paid $1.6 million for this one right up here at Saratoga in August of 2021. Sibling named Spice is Nice, you might remember, won the debut for the same connections just about 3 years ago right here at Gulfstream, going a mile in a maiden special event. So big price, same connections that won with the sibling in a relatively similar event. I'll go with Sergeant Pepper on top. Cuvier in the second slot by Collected. Collected, a nice sire of first out runners. 46 first out runners last year, 5 wins, 4 seconds, 4 thirds. So a little bit of early talent for the sire. This one was purchased at Ocala back in June, worth 10.1 before that sale. And there's a sibling called I Am the Cash Man. Second in debut, third in the second start, then won, then ran fifth, then won again. So in the first 5 starts, a couple of wins, a second and a third. So some win early on the bottom as well as the top. Cuvier in the second slot, and Practico in the third slot. Practical Joke on top. Good sire of win early types. The trainer, good first out of the box. Workouts look kind of interesting, and at a price, I would not ignore Practico, the number 11, in the fifth at Gulfstream. 8, 6, 11, and 7.
I'm thinking Collected is the horse I think that beat Arrogate when he came
that
back.
Sounds right.
When he came back to the States after that Dubai World Cup race, I think it was.
That sounds right.
All right, we'll take our final break. When we come back, second half of today's action from Gulfstream Park.
This is a championship meet. All the best jockeys in the world are here, and I'm excited to ride against them.
We back.
And you get to watch some really incredible, talented athletes out there.
To us, it's a place to be in the winter.
I love Gulfstream Park because of the racing.
The palm trees, the beach is right here. The horse racing is some of the best in the country.
A lot of good horses come out of here. And if you want to go to the next level, Gulfstream Park was the place to come.
I remember the first time I came to Gulfstream, it was like this big fairy tale place. All the history.
Shoemaker sitting perfectly still. He hasn't touched this magnificent colt, and here comes the finish.
And all these great horses, trainers, jockeys. It was everything that I ever dreamed of.
We were just talking about all things Del Mar. I was thinking they still haven't figured out the modern game's 2-year-old victory. Look, they're getting to it. On to the 6th race this afternoon. The about 7.5 furlongs on the turf. Optional claimer 759 winners, one other. This is one that really gets me with the horsemen, because it's got to be a horseman's issue. It's a bad run into the first turn. Why won't they just run the mile? I mean, I don't get this. It's, you know, if you draw the 9, okay, Boomer, you're like, but they've stuck with this. They've talked about the run-up being 362 feet or something. I just never said, why don't they just drop it and run the mile?
Yeah.
Is it that big a difference?
I have a couple of horses towards the outside, 8, 7, 5, and 2. Sendero on top, and they're going to have to negotiate from towards the outside. But I just thought this Pletcher runner coming out of some stakes action may just have the class edge in here. Kevin Attard has Moon Landing, who was a nice winner in debut up at Woodbine. I think this could be a nice horse too and match up. But if you are concerned about the post position, Tumbarumba maybe becomes a little more palatable with the 3 tries so far. Has not tried the turf, however, but could be a little bit interesting in here at maybe some value. And Syndicated from Shug, coming over from Europe. First time in the United States, 8-1 on the morning line. But again, you're getting a much cozier post position and a European runner who showed a little talent over there and a nice price. So in the 6th at Gulfstream, 8, 7, 5, and 2.
And years ago, Jeff Carl had told me that at Laurel, where it's a 1.8 mile circumference like Saratoga, and they have the 1-turn mile shoot, but they run the 1.16 mile races, as they also used to do at Hollywood Park. He's like, the first time I got in the gate with an outside horse, I'm like, how do I get over there? I mean, it's a short run into the first turn. On to the 7th race. Florida Breds, optional claimer, non-winners of 1, 5 on the Tapeta.
6, 2, 4, and 7. I'll put Love and Make Sense on top. Getting 12-1. I'll see if that morning line holds up, because I thought off the last couple of starts, does move up here. But it's one of those progressions where has been moving up the past few and has won the last 2, moving up. And so this becomes a little more of an obstacle. I think this is definitely a little bit saltier, but it's a horse that's in very good form. The jock has had some long shot winners over the past couple of weeks. So I think Love and Make Sense does make a little sense to play at a little bit of a price. Veloce Bella in the second slot. Chantal Sutherland on board for Delgado. Trainer having a very good meet, and this is a horse with a lot of early speed. Gets a nice cozy post position. I would think this will be a catch me if you can scenario, and in this field that may be tough to do. Sal Hope in the 3rd spot. I went back to the turf race at Colonial 2 starts back and tried the dirt last time and disappointed a little bit, but now on the synthetic could be a little bit intriguing. Again, going back to that August try at Colonial on the turf. If we get close to that, this horse becomes a player as well. 7th at Gulfstream, 6, 2, 4, and 7.
I'm sure many are salivating at the 8th race. 3-year-olds maiden special weights on the dirt, the 1-turn mile.
1, 10, 11, and 2. The breeding was not jumping out at me on Sarah's Shaman with Shaman's Ghost, but boy, you look at the workouts. I just think Safi Joseph is kind of touting this one in the morning, so I couldn't get past the workouts, which are very good. So I'm going to go Sarah's Shaman. Equal protection, second time out, for the aforementioned Chad Brown and Klarovich, who, again, I like first out of the box. This one clearly did not live up to those type of hopes in debut, but I would expect a much better performance in here. And Big Data in the third spot. A couple of starts so far, a couple of nice second-place finishes. I think you get a little bit of value, and I think this horse may be primed in the third start of the career to put in a very good effort. But Shug with Wayhill Road is interesting in here. King's Barnes for Pletcher. Paid a lot of money for that one. You're right, this is a really nice race, and probably some horses worth watching going forward coming out of it. But I have it 110, 11, and 2.
And I tell you one thing, I think it bodes well if Saffie Joseph stays in. First off, he drew the rail, and he can read the daily racing form, and there, right next door might be an Uncle Mo killer next to you. And if you stay in, you must feel pretty good. On to the ninth, we close out with a couple of, it's a little disjointed from its start, but the Sunshine Million, well, I guess I don't call it million when you're running for 75K, the Sunshine Filly and Mare Turf at a mile.
Just kind of know, it's only the Sunshine now.
Yes.
For 75K.
Yeah.
2, 7, 4, and 6, a vow for Todd Pletcher. 3 starts in the career. First 2 were daylight wins. Last time, tried a non-winners who won Open Company. The first 2 were against Florida Bred Company. We had a good second. Now tries the turf, however, but I'm going to put my trust in Todd to be making a clever move here. I'll put a vow on top with Irod Ortiz on board. Coming in from California, Sugar Fix. And this horse has raced at Gulfstream before and raced very well at Gulfstream, but has recently, as I say, been out, well, Southern California and Northern California. The last start was at Golden Gate. Tyler Gaffleone on board. I would think, looking at the record, and again, given this horse has some good races at Gulfstream, we'll take the action. No arguments, but I just thought the Pletcher horse was a little more intriguing. And Sweet Danny Girl, also relatively lightly raced, like the top pick, has not tried the turf yet, but has some talent and may be very interesting if she takes to the turf. For me in the ninth, 2, 7, 4, and 6.
Continuing on with the Sunshine idea, the Sprint at 6.
3, 5, 4, and 2, Unsociable on top for Mike Maker. Mike Maker off the claim. Irod Ortiz will hop on board off 3 straight wins. 7 times in the exacta with 5 wins and 8 starts. This is a very talented runner, and if we get that 7-2, I think there's good value there too for a runner of this talent. So Unsociable on top. Legal Deal in the second spot. Alternating wins and second place finishes over the last 4. And if that alternation continues, we're back to a win. But regardless, I think this is a horse in very good form right now. Hasn't been seen since the middle of November, but again, this day and age, that's not a notable layoff. 10 times in the exacta in 16 starts at Gulfstream, so logical as a serious player in here. And Legends Can't Die. First 5 starts of the career were on the turf, then went over the dirt last time for George Weaver Reeves Racing and Company, and ran a pretty good second behind the aforementioned Endorsed. That was the race that he won back on December 22nd. Nice workouts leading into this, and again, just seemed to show a little bit of affinity perhaps for the dirt. Legends Can't Die, interesting in here. In the Gulfstream 10th, 3, 5, 4, and 2.
And wrapping it up, we have Fillies and Mares on the turf. Maiden Claimers in for 25, going a mile.
9, 2, 3, and 11. I will put Wand on top. Pletcher runner takes a dip down the claiming ladder. I think they're just getting realistic in that they haven't won in the first 3 starts. They paid $360,000. They come back here for 25. So it's a little bit of a scratch your chin kind of a scenario, but as I say, I think they're just being realistic. Second spot, Always Royal. First 3 starts of the career, they were okay, and I think good enough to match up with this group. Good, better, best comes in off a claim at Churchill. Tries the turf today. Fausto Gutierrez, limited sample, but pretty good off the claim. Pretty good moving horses over to the turf. This one could be interesting with Jose Ortiz on board. In the 11th and final, 9, 2, 11, 9, 2, 3, and 11.
Just a quick note, looking up at the board, think I saw they're off the turf fish, like looking at the Tampa Bay feed here, that they're off the turf today at Tampa Bay Downs. I think they had that situation yesterday also, so they're getting some inkling. Yeah, we're off the turf today. Super high five carryover, just under 3,500, but it is official at Tampa Bay Downs. They're going to be off the turf. We hope on the other side of the state they have better weather for their turf action today. A couple interesting maiden special weight races, which is part of what, Gulfstream Park we kind of think of over the winter time. Some horses getting a later start in their career. I thought the last one particularly piqued my interest. Probably about 5 horses based on pedigree and connections. Looks like it could be one of those, almost killer ones. It'd be interesting. Like I said, if I've always said this, and it was pointed out to me by somebody, how disproportionately the one hole scratches out. Guys just don't want to run from down there. And the other thing also was, was listed at 4-1 on the morning line. I noticed for Safi Joseph in that group. That's saying a lot. Yeah. So that's pretty good.
I think that also the morning line guy might have looked. The workouts are just
they're eye popping in this day and age. So refresh the memory for people racing across America.
Top of the hour, Mark Cassey will join us. He has some runners in those stakes down at Tampa. Nice day at Tampa today with some stakes action, and a little bit later on, Ren Carruthers from Tampa. We'll talk stakes action down.
So that'll be good with Ren because she'll have the. Off the turf, and maybe if scratches are coming out, which is always difficult at this hour. But
I'll also toss out while we were on the.
I didn't know if we were supposed to mention it.
Well, we are. Our man, Shannon Donovan came in and waved at us at the NYRA calendar. It's NYRA calendar giveaway day today here at the Clubhouse Racebook. First 75 folks at the door. You pay your $1 admission, you get a NYRA calendar. So come on down to the Clubhouse today if you'd like a nice NYRA wall calendar.
Beautiful.
Clubhouse Racebook.
Good job,
711 Central Avenue in Albany.
And I said this. We have just a moment. I said this for years. It is. Other than the T-shirt at Saratoga, which is a NYRA thing, I think for Capital, the calendar was always the biggest thing. Because sometimes if there was I think in New York, they gave it away for people that showed up at Aqueduct on New Year's Day.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And then they would parse it out, and Capital was in that group. And one or two times it was inclement weather, and they couldn't get up here, and the people were getting nervous in the Capital District if they would be getting them or not. And I can't reach over comfortably and pick it up. But I told you, years ago, there used to be coupon specials in there for the New Yorkers. It was always, because Saratoga kind of, in my adult lifetime, has always had their own promotional thing. There isn't T-shirt day at Aqueduct, folks. It doesn't quite have the marketing cachet. But so they had coupons for whether it was free admission or free parking or a free hot dog or something, was part of the NYRA calendar. So that's today, the first 75 people?
Yep. Clubhouse Racebook.
Well, we got to jump the line. Well, it's a little thing we get. He stays, I go. Ladies and gentlemen, enjoy your Saturday of racing.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.